Welcome to Nothing Without Us, stories and discussions about meaningful inclusion. We will talk about accessibility, true inclusion, and disability justice with stories, policy updates, discussions, and related commentary on the value of being accessible and inclusive. We believe life should be accessible for everyone, and everyone should be included in all aspects of life. I am your host, Annette Bourbonniere. I am a 70-ish-year-old woman with short gray hair and eyeglasses. I am sitting in a power wheelchair, and my service dog Kirby could show himself at some point during the podcast. This podcast is captioned. Please press the subscribe button at any time during the podcast if you have not already done so. It will not cost you anything, but it will help us make this podcast grow. You are also welcome to make comments in the chat and to give us feedback about what you do or do not like. We especially appreciate a thumbs up. Happy Disability Pride Month. Yes, that's what we're going to talk about today. July is Disability Pride Month. On July 26, 1990, President George Herbert Walker Bush signed the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act, the civil rights legislation that prohibits discrimination against persons with disabilities. This important piece of legislation gives us the right to access government and private businesses, as well as the right to education and employment without discrimination. In other words, we have the right to live full, independent, and productive lives just like everybody else. While it is possible to legislate actions, it is not possible to legislate attitudes. We still have a long way to go with that. However, the ADA is an important step toward being treated as equal and valuable human beings who are contributing to society. So when we talk about disability pride, it's important to state what that's really all about. After all, disability is not an accomplishment. I don't believe anybody has ever set out the idea that living with disability is a goal. However, we can and should be proud of the lives we live as persons with disabilities. Disability is an integral part of who we are, and as we acknowledge that, we will gain the strength to set the expectations for what we can do when barriers are removed. Part of celebrating Disability Pride this month is honoring the history that brought us to where we are today. We did not get this far because people without disabilities brought us here. Rather, we progressed because of brave and determined individuals with disabilities who refuse to accept the status quo. People we should be honoring include Ed Roberts, the founder of the independent living movement in the 1970s, Judy Heumann, who led the longest occupation of a federal building during peacetime in 1977 to force the administration to write the regulations for Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act so they could be enforced. Lois Curtis and Elaine Wilson, whose brave fight for disability justice led to the Olmstead decision. There are many more. There are a lot of people whose names we don't know that worked with those with names we do know, and others who worked individually to remove the barriers that prevent us from living the lives we are capable of living. So many gave so much so we could all have some freedom. If these people, all of whom lived with disability, could do so much to make our lives better, we should feel empowered to continue their mission. Disability touches just about everybody. Depending on how you look at the statistics or how they're maintained, either 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 people in the United States live with some disability, making us the largest minority in this country. You or someone you are close to likely has some disability. And the older you get, the more likely it is that you will incur some disability. So happy Disability Pride Month. Let's make life happen. I'm Annette Bourbonnier from Nothing Without Us, Stories and Discussions of Meaningful Inclusion. Thank you for listening, and please share the link with your friends. I try to post at least one new podcast every week. Right now you can find this podcast on YouTube and on Patreon.com. All our previous episodes are on Patreon. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Threads. Please remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. The more subscribers we have and the more positive ratings, the easier it will be to attract good guests. I do read comments, so if there is a guest you would like to see or topic you would like to see discussed, I will be happy to follow through. Till the next Nothing Without Us.